Some books about money try to calm you down. They tell you to be patient, save faithfully, invest consistently, and trust that time will eventually solve the problem of financial freedom. The Millionaire Fastlane does almost the opposite. MJ DeMarco opens with an argument that many readers find both energizing and unsettling. He says the standard financial script most people follow is not simply slow. It is structurally flawed if your goal is substantial wealth and real freedom while you are still young enough to enjoy it. That is what gives the book its electricity. It does not nibble around the edges of conventional advice. It attacks the premise. DeMarco argues that if you build your life around wage labor, gradual savings, and decades of waiting, you may end up disciplined, but still constrained, responsible but still dependent, and financially respectable but not truly free. His answer is what he calls the fast lane, a path built around entrepreneurship, scale, leverage, and control. This is a book with a loud title and a loud personality, but underneath the intensity is a serious framework about how wealth is actually created. In this narration, we will explore the major ideas of the Millionaire Fastlane in a calm and structured way. We will look at why DeMarco rejects the traditional path, how he divides financial life into different roads, why he believes ownership matters more than income alone, what he means by leverage and scale, how he thinks entrepreneurs should evaluate opportunities, and what practical lessons readers can take from his model. This is not just a book about getting rich. It is a book about the architecture of freedom and about the difference between earning well and building something that can outgrow your personal labor. At the center of the Millionaire Fastlane is a blunt challenge to mainstream financial advice. The conventional script goes something like this. Get educated, find stable employment, work diligently, save a portion of every paycheck, invest it in the market, reduce unnecessary spending, and wait. If all goes well, decades later you will have enough to retire. DeMarco calls this the slow lane. He does not say it never works. In fact, he recognizes that careful saving and long-term investing can produce comfort and stability. His objection is that the model often asks too much time, assumes too many favorable conditions, and postpones freedom until the later stages of life. From his perspective, that is too high a cost. If your richest years in terms of energy, curiosity, flexibility, and physical vitality are spent waiting for the eventual payoff of old age, then the bargain may be far less attractive than it appears. This is where the book becomes emotionally powerful for many readers. It speaks to the discomfort of looking at a whole lifetime of work and wondering whether security has been purchased at the price of immediacy, autonomy, and possibility. DeMarco wants readers to think not only about whether a plan is respectable, but whether it is structurally capable of producing the life they say they want. Can it create extraordinary wealth, not merely stability? Can it do so on a timeline that lets you actually use it? Can it produce freedom without requiring constant dependence on your labor? These are not small questions. They are questions about the design of a life. The slow lane, in DeMarco's view, may be acceptable for someone content with modest outcomes and long delays. But for someone seeking substantial autonomy, it is too dependent on time and too weak in leverage. That is why he presents the fast lane not as a motivational slogan, but as a different financial architecture altogether. One of the most memorable parts of the book is DeMarco's framework of the 3 roads to wealth, or more precisely, the 3 roads people travel financially. The first is the sidewalk. This is the road of immediate gratification, weak financial discipline, impulsive spending, and vulnerability to chaos. People on the sidewalk are often living for now without any coherent long-term structure. They consume first, think later, and remain exposed to every setback because they have built no margin, no plan, and no asset base. The second road is the slow lane. This is the road many people are told is wise. It includes stable employment, reasonable budgeting, retirement contributions, index funds, and a long horizon. The slow lane is more disciplined than the sidewalk, but in DeMarco's eyes, it still relies too heavily on patience, external conditions, and decades of sacrifice. The third road is the fast lane. This is the road of entrepreneurship, ownership, leverage, and scalable value creation. It is designed to build wealth faster not through luck or fantasy, but through structures that allow value to reach many people without remaining trapped inside one person's hours. What makes this framework effective is that it is more than financial classification. It is a worldview. The sidewalk is governed by appetite. The slow lane is governed by convention. The fast lane is governed by creation and control. DeMarco uses these roads to help readers see that money behavior is not only a matter of tactics. It reflects assumptions about time, risk, responsibility, and what is possible. The framework is intentionally simplified, but that simplicity helps the book make its point. Many people think only in terms of spending less or earning more. DeMarco wants them to think in terms of roads. What system are you living inside? What kind of result does that system naturally produce? And if you are dissatisfied with the destination, are you willing to question the road itself? A major correction the book makes is the distinction between income and wealth. In ordinary conversation, these often blur together. People assume that someone with a high income is wealthy or on the path to wealth. But DeMarco argues that this is often misleading. Income can be large while freedom remains small. If your lifestyle, obligations, and identity all depend on continuous labor, then your financial condition may still be fragile. The moment the labor stops, the flow stops. That is not the structure of independence. It is simply a better-paid version of dependence. This idea matters because many people chase salary as though it were the same thing as autonomy. DeMarco is not saying income is irrelevant. It matters enormously. But the question is what kind of income you are building. Is it income tied directly to your daily output, your employer's decisions, and your personal time? Or is it income tied to ownership, systems, assets, and market value that can continue beyond your individual hours? This is why the book pushes so strongly toward entrepreneurship. Not because jobs are inherently worthless, but because wage labor has natural limits. There are only so many hours you can sell. Even a very expensive hour is still an hour. Wealth, in DeMarco's view, begins when the connection between time and income changes. When the value you create is not limited to your bodily presence, your financial ceiling starts to rise. This is one of the book's most enduring lessons. Do not mistake good earnings for real freedom. Ask whether your financial structure can survive your absence. Although the Millionaire Fastlane has an aggressive tone, one of its strongest underlying principles is actually very practical and market-based. DeMarco argues that wealth is built by delivering value to others, especially at scale. This point is important because it grounds the whole Fastlane concept in reality. Wealth does not appear because you want it intensely. It does not appear because you repeat affirmations, chase shiny trends, or merely decide to think like a millionaire. It appears when you create something the marketplace values. The size of your reward is connected to the size of the problem you solve, the degree to which you solve it well, and the number of people you can reach. This is why a scalable product, service, platform, or system matters so much in the book. If you solve a meaningful problem for thousands or millions of people, your upside becomes fundamentally different from someone who solves one problem at a time in direct exchange for labor. DeMarco wants readers to stop asking only, "How can I make more money?" and instead ask, "What value can I create that many people need? What frustration can I remove? What desire can I satisfy? What inefficiency can I improve? What service can I deliver better, faster, or more intelligently?" This orientation is one reason the book continues to resonate with entrepreneurs. It frames wealth not as personal greed alone, but as market alignment. The marketplace rewards usefulness. Of course, the book is unapologetically ambitious, and DeMarco absolutely wants readers to think big. But the mechanism is not mystical. It is value. If you want extraordinary outcomes, you need an extraordinary relationship to demand. You need to build something people genuinely want, and you need a structure that lets that solution travel far beyond your individual effort. Another pillar of the Fastlane philosophy is control. DeMarco repeatedly criticizes conventional financial models for relying too heavily on forces outside a person's influence. If your future depends on employer loyalty, stock market behavior, macroeconomic conditions, housing appreciation, retirement legislation, or decades of stable compounding, then much of your plan rests in other hands. Again, he does not deny that people can benefit from those systems. He argues that dependence on them reduces agency. The Fastlane, by contrast, seeks more control over the levers of wealth creation. When you own a business, a product, a brand, or a system, you may still face risk, but you are closer to the source of decision-making. You can improve the offer, change the strategy, increase distribution, pivot the model, innovate faster, and respond more directly to the market. This emphasis on control also changes the psychology of wealth building. Instead of living as a participant in someone else's structure, you begin trying to design the structure yourself. That shift matters. It creates a different relationship to work, responsibility, and reward. It also explains why DeMarco is skeptical of passive dependence masquerading as security. In his view, the safer-looking path may actually be the more vulnerable one if it leaves you with little influence over your income and future. Control does not eliminate uncertainty, but it changes your position inside uncertainty. You are no longer only reacting. You are building, adjusting, and steering. Many people hear entrepreneurial advice and immediately think of hard work. DeMarco does value hard work, but he wants readers to understand that hustle alone is not enough. If effort is applied inside the wrong structure, it remains limited. This is why leverage and scale are so central in the book. Leverage means your effort can produce results beyond the immediate unit of labor. Scale means the business can serve more people without requiring a proportional increase in your direct time. Together, these ideas separate a true Fastlane vehicle from a business that merely creates self-employment. DeMarco is careful about this distinction. Someone can leave a job, start a business, and still remain trapped if the business depends completely on their personal time. In that case, they may have more independence in one sense, but their income is still chained to their presence. The real question is whether the business can expand. Can a product be sold repeatedly? Can systems replace repetitive labor? Can distribution grow? Can a team or platform multiply output? Can technology carry value to many customers at once? This way of thinking encourages readers to evaluate opportunities structurally. A business with scale does not simply keep you busy. It gives your effort a longer shadow. One decision, one improvement, one product, one system can continue creating value over and over again. That is the essence of leverage. It is also why DeMarco's concept of wealth feels different from the usual productivity narrative. He is not asking how hard can you work. He is asking what kind of machine are you building, and will that machine magnify the value you create? One of the book's most practical contributions is its framework for evaluating business opportunities, often discussed through what readers know as the Fastlane commandments. The exact labels are easy to remember because they function almost like a checklist. Need, entry, control, scale, time. Together, these principles help distinguish a real Fastlane opportunity from something that merely looks entrepreneurial on the surface. Need asks whether the business solves a real problem or fulfills genuine demand. A business built around ego, imitation, or shallow trends may struggle because it is not anchored in a true market need. Entry refers to barriers. If anyone can instantly copy the idea with no difficulty, your advantage may be thin. Control asks whether you actually govern the core asset or whether you are dependent on a platform, supplier, or system that could undermine you. Scale examines whether the opportunity can grow beyond one person or one local limitation. Time asks whether the model eventually frees your time or traps you in a permanent exchange of labor for money. This framework is powerful because it protects against common entrepreneurial illusions. Many people become excited by the identity of business ownership without examining the architecture of the business itself. DeMarco wants architecture to come first. A business can have cash flow and still fail the deeper test if it lacks scale or control. It can feel exciting and still create a prison. The commandments push readers to think beyond enthusiasm and ask harder structural questions. If I build this, will it own me? If it succeeds, will it actually become more liberating or just more demanding? Is this truly a vehicle for wealth or only a better-looking version of constant labor? These questions give the book much of its practical edge. They move the conversation from inspiration to design. A recurring theme in the Millionaire Fastlane is that conventional definitions of risk are often upside down. Most people are taught that entrepreneurship is risky and traditional employment is safe. DeMarco complicates that assumption. He argues that jobs can feel safe because they are familiar, socially approved, and immediately predictable. But long-term dependence on employment may be riskier than it appears if it leaves you with little control, limited upside, and no asset ownership. Layoffs happen. Industries change. Inflation erodes earnings. Retirement projections fail. Time passes. From this point of view, the supposedly safe path can contain hidden fragility. Entrepreneurship, on the other hand, may look risky because outcomes are uncertain and effort is front-loaded. Yet it may offer a more durable route to freedom if it leads to ownership, scale, and asset creation. This does not mean every business idea is wise or every founder will succeed. DeMarco is not glamorizing chaos. He is asking readers to reconsider what risk actually means. Is risk only the possibility of losing money today, or is it also the possibility of spending 40 years on a path that never creates true autonomy? This reversal is one of the book's most effective rhetorical moves. It helps readers see that comfort and safety are not identical. The familiar path may be emotionally easier, but that does not guarantee it is strategically superior. Part of reading The Millionaire Fastlane well is recognizing both its strength and its style. Its strength lies in how clearly it identifies the structural limits of trading time for money and waiting decades for freedom. It also powerfully emphasizes ownership, market value, and the importance of building scalable systems. For many readers, this is clarifying and energizing. But the book also pushes hard. Its tone can be absolutist. It tends to dismiss conventional paths in sweeping ways, and some readers may feel that it understates the value of stability, long-term investing, and more gradual forms of wealth building. That does not make the book unhelpful. It simply means its value often lies in how strongly it corrects one side of the conversation. It is a book that tries to shake people awake. And for readers who have internalized only slow, passive, job-centered definitions of financial success, that shake can be useful. The best way to take the book is not as a rigid doctrine, but as a powerful invitation to think more structurally about wealth. So how might someone apply the book without turning it into a caricature? The first step is to stop thinking only about income and start thinking about vehicles. What structure is carrying your effort? Is the upside capped by your hours, or can the value expand? The second step is to look for needs worth serving. What real problem can you solve? What market frustration do you understand? Where can you create something genuinely useful? The third step is to evaluate opportunities with the book's core principles in mind. Do you have control? Is there room for scale? Will this become more freeing over time, or only more demanding? The fourth step is to respect process. The title may emphasize speed, but the path still requires patience, learning, iteration, rejection, and discipline. Fastlane does not mean effortless. It means asymmetrical. The fifth step is to think like an owner. Even if you are not yet running a business, you can begin shifting your attention from labor alone to assets, systems, and value creation. The book's deepest application is a mindset shift. Instead of asking how to survive more comfortably inside a conventional model, you ask whether a more powerful model can be built at all. The lasting appeal of the Millionaire Fastlane comes from the fact that it treats wealth not as a moral reward for patience, but as a designed outcome. MJ DeMarco wants readers to see that financial freedom is not only about discipline over time. It is about the structure through which effort meets the marketplace. If the structure is weak, slow, and dependent, even admirable habits may produce only modest results. If the structure is scalable, valuable, and under your control, the possibility of extraordinary results becomes more real. Whether or not a reader agrees with every claim in the book, its central question remains powerful. Are you building a life that depends entirely on your ongoing labor, or are you building something that can outgrow you? That question cuts through much of the noise around money. In the end, the Millionaire Fastlane is not really about shortcuts in the childish sense. It is about refusing to confuse motion with progress, salary with wealth, and patience with strategy. It argues that freedom belongs not merely to the hardest worker, but to the person who chooses the right vehicle, creates real value, and builds a system capable of carrying that value at scale.